Hey, friends. If you've been loving the conversations we have here on the All in My Head podcast, and you're looking for a way to ground your thoughts, reflect more deeply, or just make space for yourself in the chaos, I've created something for you. My very own journals are now available on Amazon. Whether it's the gratitude journal to help you focus on the good, especially on the hard days, or the Mind Unwind journal, a space to release, reset, and realign, these were made with you in mind, my thoughtful, deep feeling, always reflecting listeners. Just head to Amazon and search Gratitude, Mind Unwind Journal, or my name, Jenny Jimenez-Sullivan, or check the link in the show notes to grab your copy. It's simple, intentional, and ready to meet you wherever you are. Listen to the All in My Head podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Please, allow me to show you something.
Welcome back to the All in My Head podcast. I'm Jenny, and I am your host. And you have landed here today for episode 29. And episode 29 is called Do We Still Fit? The honest conversation on adult friendships. Have you ever looked at someone you've known forever and quietly wondered, do we still fit? Not because anything happened, not because there was a big blow up or a betrayal, just because time passed, because life changed, because you changed. That question has been living loudly in my head lately. So today I want to talk about adult friendships, the ones that grow, the ones that stretch, and the ones that slowly, quietly slip away. Let's talk about, first and foremost, the friendship shift. When we're kids or teenagers, friendships are built on proximity. You go to the same school, you live in the same neighborhood, you sit at the same lunch table. That's a shout out to my table number 7 girls from high school. And then adulthood shows up and rearranges everything. Suddenly, friendships are built around schedules, which everyone has a different schedule. Your energy level, let's be real, that's a big one. Your emotional capacity and the life stages that we're all in. Some of us get married, some have kids, some don't have kids. Some people move away, as I moved away 6.5 years ago from the state that I grew up in, raised my children in, and lived in for over 45 years. And some stay exactly where they are. And without anyone saying it out loud, the friendship just starts to feel different. You still care about them. You still laugh when you're together, but something feels slightly misaligned. And it's not broken. It's not that it's broken per se, in some instances. It's just off. And that's when the question sneaks in. Do we still fit? Or are we just holding on to who we used to be together? And that's a big question. You know, there's this kind of space and time where we are outgrowing things, and we might be outgrowing these relationships without villains. And that's one of the hardest truths about adult relationships, is sometimes no one is wrong. There's no villain, no dramatic ending, Although in some cases there is. And I have had this happen in some of my friendships where, there might be this dramatic ending, but oftentimes there's no dramatic ending. And sometimes there's no clear reason to point to. You just grow and you grow different. Maybe you've done a lot of inner work and they haven't. Your values may have shifted. The way you communicate has changed. What you need from a friendship has evolved. And that can bring guilt, right? We as a society, we are very much about guilt, unfortunately. So this can bring about guilt because we're taught that real friendships last forever. And some do. That if someone has been there for you for 10, 15, 20, 30 years or more, you owe them permanence. But longevity doesn't always mean alignment. And it's okay to admit that quietly without needing to justify it to anyone else. Friendships and relationships are between two people. So it's okay to feel this misalignment. And you don't need to justify it to anyone. But then there's also this grief that no one talks about. And I did talk about it a little bit in my grief episode. But that episode was more about kind of death and losing someone in this permanent way. But there's this grief that no one really wants to talk about. We don't talk enough about the grief of friendships that don't officially end. There's no funeral, no breakup conversation, and oftentimes there's no clear moment that this is over. It just manifests in fewer texts, longer gaps in between talking to each other, canceled plans that don't get rescheduled. And somehow, and oftentimes, that hurts more because you're left mourning something that still technically exists. And sometimes, but not always, and that's important to make clear, you may miss the version of you that existed in that friendship, the shared memories, the way things used to feel. And sometimes you wonder if you're the problem for noticing the change at all. But grief doesn't need permission, and it doesn't need a dramatic reason. It just needs honesty. And then there's that intersection of when you're the one who has changed, right? And that's a quiet and harder truth. Sometimes the reason the friendship feels different is because you're different. And I know that for me personally, I am at the heart the same person that I always was. My heart has never changed, but I have changed and grown so dramatically and drastically in these past 10 to 15 years, I would say. It's been a slow growth for me. But, sometimes the reason that these friendships change is because you're different. I'm different, right? You have stronger boundaries now. You don't overextend the way that you used to. And you don't stay silent to keep the peace. And that's a big one for me. I always stayed silent to keep the peace for everyone around me. And then that was kind of slowly killing me inside. And we know that when you hold those feelings and you hold on to that silence, that it is unhealthy for you and it is slowly breaking you down. And so, like for me, I stopped being silent and complacent in these relationships. And in that, not every friendship knows how to survive that version of you. Some friendships, oftentimes, were built on you being available at all times, you being the listener, not the sharer, you being easy and agreeable and flexible. And growth can feel threatening to people who benefited from the smaller version of you, your smaller self. And that's eye-opening. And that realization can be painful. but it is also so freeing. It reminds you that outgrowing someone doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you honest, asking the question gently. So, how do we make these relationships fit or not fit for that matter? Do we still fit? And ask that question without judgment. Try asking yourself these questions if you're in a situation that you're saying to yourself, do we still fit? Ask yourself these questions. Do I feel energized or depleted after time together? Or even in text and phone conversations. As I said, I am not in the same state anymore as a lot of my core group of friends that I had throughout my life. So oftentimes it's a text or a phone conversation. But ask yourself, do I feel energized or depleted after these conversations? Can I show up as myself without having to shrink myself? Are we curious about each other's growth? Or are we stuck in old roles? Does this friendship still feel mutual? And I would add to that, did this friendship ever feel mutual? Or were you complacent and comfortable in the space of it not feeling mutual? And here is probably the most important one. Am I staying out of love or out of habit? Am I ignoring these friendship red flags? And let's just say, not every friendship needs to be ended. Some just need redefining or retuning, like any relationship. Maybe you set these boundaries of less pressure and less expectation and more space to evolve individually. But some need to be lovingly released. And I use the word lovingly. In my situations, I have lovingly released and let go of friendships, relationships. And that's okay. Choosing alignment over obligation, right? If you're sitting with this question right now, I want you to hear this. You are not a bad friend for noticing when something no longer fits. You're not ungrateful. You're not disloyal. You are human. Adult friendships aren't about holding on at all costs. They're not about holding on at all costs, especially if you're sacrificing a part of yourself. They're about choosing alignment over obligation, honesty over guilt, and growth over fear. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to let the relationship change shape. So if someone has been heavy on your heart lately, and if you've been asking quietly, do we still fit? Trust that question. Trust that gut feeling. It's not trying to break anything. It's trying to tell you the truth. The truth that it is okay to grow out of friendships, just as it is to grow into new ones. And oftentimes, it's absolutely the best thing you can do for everyone involved. And it may not feel that way in the moment. And it may take time to feel that way. And sometimes one person, especially if you've been the one to make the decision, will never feel that way. But it is the best thing that you can do for everyone involved. And I know for me, it has been a journey of making the conscious decision of letting go with love. And for me, I want to nurture friendships and relationships that feel like home. That's what the season of my life is about nurturing friendships and relationships that feel like home. I want to thank you for sitting in this conversation with me today. I know that it has been a conversation that I have had with many different pockets of people in my life lately. And so I knew that it needed to be a bigger conversation. And if this episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might be asking the same question. Thank you for listening to the All in My Head podcast. I hope you have the best, most beautiful, perfectly aligned day.